In 1999, Capcom released two fighting games based on the manga series Jojo's Bizarre Adventure. The first, carrying the same title in Japan and released as Jojo's Venture in the US arcades, was an impressive effort in and of itself, but was a bit bare in terms of character selection and had a number of bugs and infinites, some of which were painfully easy to execute. Later that year, Capcom released an update in Japan entitled Jojo's Bizarre Adventure Heritage for the Future, which retooled move properties, turned the secret characters into proper members of the roster, added new characters along the way, and added more personality to the game overall by drawing more inspiration from the series proper. I don't really have to point out how successful the update was. Although both games share the same mechanics, the update has essentially become the standard game. Even American gamers who never got the Japanese arcade update recognized that it was the better game when both games were bundled and ported to the Dreamcast and PlayStation consoles. So, for the sake of avoiding repetition, this episode will only focus on Heritage to the Future. Now that this little history lesson's over, let's get into the game proper. The fundamental controls are simple but strict, yet they can be used for a slew of defensive options. There are 4 tap buttons, which correspond to 3 different levels of strength: weak, medium, and strong, and the stand button, which is used to activate and control the character's stand. Small chain combos are possible when stands are equipped, but they lack the priority and meter building prowess of standard attack moves. Forward and backward dashes are performed by double tapping forward or backward respectively, and most characters have the ability to double jump when their stands are active. Characters can also dodge moves by pressing all 3 attack buttons at the same time, even in the middle of a dash, although it can't be performed when a stand is activated. Pressing those buttons while guarding allows you to perform the advanced guard, which knocks your opponent back a ways. It can knock a character back half a screen, which can really mess up an opponent's offense. Throws are performed with forward or backward and a strong attack button, although the timing is too strict to lean into. It's also possible to recover in the air by pressing 2 attack buttons while airborne, although you're completely vulnerable on the way down. You can also guard cancel by breaking your block with DP and an attack button, which can give you some breathing room. Although the motion was originally quarter circle forward in the first version, which does leave me feeling that this is the one area in which the update took a misstep in. And supers are performed by pressing 2 attack buttons and performing the appropriate motion. Some of the big draws for the series are the elements of horror and fighting, the eclectic character design, and, ever since Part 3 was introduced, the stands, physical manifestations of psychic energy with strange, reality-altering powers. This being a fighting game and all, the horror aspect was subdued somewhat, but the other aspects were utilized to great effect. The characters look panel perfect, the stages are about as accurate to the manga as sensibly possible, the moves are brutal, and the stands are a legitimate part of the game and give each character a focused, unique style of play, rather than just taking up space as a gimmick. Stands effectively double your move lists, and can completely change the tone of a match, providing and barring different types of moves as you switch them on and off. They are at once separate from and intertwined with the characters that wield them, governed by a separate gauge beneath the life bars. When using a stand, if you take damage, your stand takes damage with you. The more damage you take, the more the stand gauge depletes, and should that gauge ever run out, the stand will break and leave you stunned, wide open for an attack and unable to use the stand for a few moments. Although there wasn't anything like this in the comics, it's a great way to punish those who use their stand as a crutch, and a smart move on Capcom's part. Speaking of good ideas, Capcom included a move called the Tandem Attack. It's activated by pressing quarter circle back and a stand button, and for about 3 seconds or so, the game will jot down any commands that you have and send it to the stand, who will dish it out to whatever poor sucker you just happen to be serving a knuckle sandwich to. And since the stand will move on its own, it's a perfect opportunity to slide over to the other side of your victim and wail away in tandem until something gives. There are 3 types of stands: active stands, which you can summon to your side at any moment, passive stands, which attack indirectly, and weapon stands, which are linked to a weapon. Weapon stands are always present and can always be attacked. Inactive stands are isolated and usually have limited use, but are still capable of dishing out heavy damage. active stands are direct and hit hard, but can be a double-edged sword because they are right beside the user, throwing punches and taking hits right along the character that they are tethered to. But they also have some toys that the other characters don't get to play with, such as the aforementioned double jump, adjusted special and super moves, and such tools as the stand appearance attack, performed with quarter circle forward and the stand button that lets them tear off and launch off on an attack all their own. Each character starts around with 1 full meter, and the super meter can be filled up to 10 times, which can seem like overkill considering that most super moves only take 1 bar and tend to do decent damage on their own. But at the same time, it keeps your options open. And it's not exactly like you can charge them on a whim. It takes a while to build meters, so it's fairly balanced. A newcomer might see all this and think that it's some sort of new indie fighting IP, and to be fair, they wouldn't be too far off. Capcom did a great job on this game, and this is one of the few instances in recent times when a company proved that they can still knock it out of the park, contrasting their typically lazy MO of creating and then rehashing the same thing over and over again. Oddly enough, they pulled it off again with Jojo's Bizzare Adventure Golden Wind for the PS2. A phenomenal brawler which is really a cut above most other works in the genre. One might think that it's just because the series kicks ass, but as Namco Bandai has proven, you can take a good thing and completely run it into the ground, so it has to be Capcom's doing. Maybe there are Jojo fanboys working there. That certainly would explain why they went to such pains to add so much detail into the game. There are references and canonical details strewn throughout the entire game. That damn stone mask that started the whole series, which flashes during a stand crush. The fact that Midler has this whole sea gypsy look going on and how she's so smoking hot. Polnareff's level 3 super, which is awesome, funny, and depressing all at the same time. Well, now I made myself feel bad. For the longest time, Jojo's Bizzare Adventure was a cult game based on a strange horror comic that was almost unheard of in the States, except for a fantastic OVA. Now that the manga is being printed in the States, it's getting a bit more of the recognition that it deserves. And yet, in a way, the game helped the series get launched over here as well. I mean, there's gotta be a reason why they jumped right into Part 3, because Parts 1 and 2 were pretty damn good on their lonesome. But in any case, it's a one-of-a-kind series, and it made for one hell of a game. Even if it never gets a proper sequel, it can stand on its own for quite a while to come.